And welcome back again, everybody. Here, back again on the Shield of Faith podcast. Jesse Phipps coming at you here with me always is
Garrett. Good to see you.
Yeah. So it's been a minute. We sure thought that Christmas break would allow us some time to record. However, we're dead wrong.
Yeah, we did not have hardly any extra time.
Yeah. So for those of you that watch us regularly. You'll notice it's probably been a couple of weeks since we've released an episode. We've went through Christmas break now. We're on the last day of Christmas break now before school gets kicked back off for me teaching, for the kids going back, all these things. We're sitting here. We've experienced the new year. So happy New Year to everybody. Welcome to 2026.
Maybe it'll be a little better in 2025.
Yeah, I sure hope so. But anyway, so we're back again. We want to kind of, wish everybody hoped everybody had a good Christmas. I know I did.
We did too. We went to 4 or 5 different Christmas family gatherings. I had to miss a few of them for work, but still got quite a bit of Christmas. And then, we got to wake up Christmas morning and watch the kids open up all their gifts and everything. That's always a joy.
Yeah. Yeah, and the kids absolutely made out like bandits at our place. Adults, we did pretty good. One of the biggest things I think that ended up happening was my family ended up the Christmas present for all the adult kids was they rented a house for the summertime down in Gulf Shores, Alabama.
That's cool.
So we're going to go down there.
Merry Christmas to you.
Right. Yeah, we're going to go down there this summer, right after school lets out. That's the plan. As long as everything works out good. I can then tell you that I'm not very far away from the Gulf Shores golf course down there, so I'm probably going to pack my clubs and go try to play around the golf. Yeah. My dad sure wants to go deep sea fishing if he can round it up. I may skip out on that. Motion sickness just doesn't do too well for me.
I love the sea. It don't bother me a bit.
Last time I went, I don't know if it was so much that I was seasick or if I took too much Dramamine. I'm not real sure. Either way, on the way home, I had to make my drive for about 4 hours because I couldn't stay awake anymore.
Goodness.
So, anyways, so that's kind of what we got. I mean, the kids, they got stinking electric scooters and just, they're way spoiled. My mom actually ended up getting a new horse. She did not know that she was getting that. And, there for about a week, probably she was getting pretty salty with Dad because she didn't know that he had been trying to get her a horse for Christmas present. And, it got delivered to the house the Tuesday before Christmas.
Oh, wow.
And I was out of town that day, and I was supposed to be the one riding it and trying it out. So that Wednesday, which was Christmas Eve, I had to go to the feed store and finish getting the rest of the tack she needed to finish tacking out her new saddle that Dad had bought her.
Mm-hmm.
And I got on him and rode him around in the arena for about an hour or two down there by the house, making sure he was good to go and put him through the paces. And then, so Christmas Eve, we always open up presents at my granny's.
Right.
And for those of you that aren't from the South that watch this, that would be my grandmother. That's just a family tradition. We've always called the grandmother on that side of the family Granny. Even my great grandmother on that side was Granny.
Right.
So
usually for us, it's like, it's got to be like a great or great great grandmother
to call them Granny.
Yeah, and then it's usually Granny followed by their last name.
Yeah,
like I had a Granny Mussett.
Yeah, so that's not now. If Pawpaw was kind of that way, like my grandpa on my mom's side was Poppy, but his dad was Pawpaw, and then my granny on my mom's side, her dad was Pawpaw.
Oh yeah.
But it was Pawpaw Ferguson and Pawpaw Treat.
Yeah, in my family we've got Meemaws and Mamaws. And all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. So
Nanny and Nana.
But so that's kind of where we've been. That Christmas morning, we always go up to their house right after we open presents, and we have a big Christmas breakfast up there. And so I had my wife drive the truck up there instead of her car. So she drove the truck up there, and I saddled the horse up at the house where the arena is and got on it and rode behind the truck as we're going down their driveway. It's a long driveway. And I was sure hoping she didn't peek out the window as I was riding up. So I tied the horse to their horse trailer at their house, and we went in and ate breakfast. He was getting a little antsy tied to the horse trailer. I was a little worried about him at first, because like I said, we hadn't had him a couple of days. You don't really know for sure how he's going to behave, especially when he's tied up for the first time and all that stuff. So I'm constantly worried about him. But we get done eating and we open all the presents. And Dad's like, "Hey, I think you missed one." And I done went outside by this time and let him up in the yard. And she come up in the yard, and she was tickled to death.
Good deal.
Yeah, he's a big.
I bet she was excited.
Yeah, he's a big, like 17 hand tall, sorrel quarter horse blaze face. He was a ponying horse on a racetrack. What he would pony the race horses to warm them up, and then he would go and once they had won their race, he would catch them and they would check them up and all that.
Sure,
so,
yeah.
So that was his job.
So probably a pretty level-headed horse then.
He seems to be. He was a little buddy sour, but that's to be expected too.
Yeah.
I mean, where he come from.
Yeah, I mean, that was his job to be a buddy. So.
Yeah, that's what it's saying. Becoming where he come from and what his job was. The only time he had company was when he was being rode.
Right.
He was probably being rode almost constantly with somebody right next to him, a horse right next to him, and then the rest of the time he was by himself in a paddock, in a barn. So it's not. I mean, if he was going to have friends, it was going to be when he's being rode. So
sure, yeah,
that's to be expected. But I don't think he's a bad horse. I think it's just he needs rode, and
right.
That's probably about it. I think he'll end up being a real good horse. So, but anyways, so we kind of left off last episode. We were talking about evidence for the Bible and evidence for Christ, and how we tend to think archaeological evidence and historical evidence, scientific evidence, how all that, it doesn't do what the secular world thinks and point away from the Bible. We believe that if you really look at it, it points more to the Bible.
Absolutely. So what we're talking about today is kind of where we left off last episode. We're looking at evidence for the Bible.
Yep. So, one thing that I would say, if you could point somewhere other than Christ in the Bible and say there's one defining moment that if you could find evidence of this, it would end the argument. In my mind, that would be the biblical flood, the global flood.
Absolutely.
And I think we may have touched a little bit on this last episode. There are multiple cultures throughout history that have had these flood stories.
So there's over 500 similar flood legends. They're found in different cultures all around the world.
Yeah,
over 500.
I mean, you talk about, you got like the Greek city of Atlantis even was a flooded city. What happened there? And so this is all over the world. But it's not just all of these cultures across the world that have all these flood cultures. I mean, Native Americans even have flood stories.
Yes, they do.
And that's kind of crazy because we know them as an isolated people from what the rest of the civilized world was.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if they're coming up with this stuff, there's got to be something going on here, in my mind.
Yeah, there can't be that many similar stories passed down through oral tradition with tribes and civilizations around the entire planet without there being some sort of merit to that story. That's
what I think. I think that story was passed down through generations, and it traced back, eventually it traced back to what the Bible tells us, the same 8 people,
Yeah, and even, and to expound on that a little bit, there was also a genetic study done when they first mapped the human genome.
Mm-hmm.
And by doing so, they discovered that somewhere in the last 6,000 or so years, there has been a really big genetic bottleneck.
Yeah.
As in, there was many different types of genomes, and by what they can discern from mapping out the human genome, that there at one point in time it was funneled down to just a very small select few people, and then spread back out across the world.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense, and it almost favors into what some of the secular world says with this mass migration of people across history. Um, we're not really debating that there was this mass migration of people. We're just debating more what my mind is with that secular world. We're debating on that detail. We're debating more on
what caused that migration,
and how long it took.
Yeah,
And that's another big thing. So we talk about all this stuff, and I'm a science and social studies teacher in middle school, so I get to delve off into this a lot, and we know that for archaeological finds, a lot of times we want to talk about dinosaur fossils or anything like that. You're digging through layers of soil,
strata,
and exactly. Rock. So you're digging through all these layers of sediment that you have, and that's one thing that a lot of the secular world, evolutionists or naturalists, if you want to go by what they want to be called today, what they go by, and they try to say, well, this is how we know how old stuff is. The deeper the soil goes, the older it is.
Right. So what you're saying there on the so basically they tell how old the strata is by what fossils they find in that strata, and then they tell how old the fossils are by what strata they find them in.
Right.
Which is circular reasoning.
So the way where all that come from. Charles Darwin wrote his theory of evolution in the early 1800s, and he was the one that first proposed this idea of adapting to environment and survival of the fittest and evolving from a singular species and all of this stuff. And this started catching on like wildfire, especially during this Enlightenment period of thinking that a lot of people were going through. And a lot of folks during this time were doubting the viability of there being a creator, that this world was created. One of those people that was big into buying into this was a Scottish lawyer named Charles Lyell. And he wrote this Principle of Geology in the 1830s. And what he did in there was he dated layers of strata in the rock layers. And he did so lending and supporting Darwin's evolution theory.
Right.
Now, Lyell was not an archaeologist, and he wasn't a scientist. He was a lawyer. And in that book, he talks about how he didn't like the idea of a creator. So you see that where the agenda is coming in already there. And as things went on, continuing, the scientific community, the secular scientific community, continued to find things that they thought supported evolution. Like you talked about, they dated fossils by where they found them in the soil. They thought they'd come up with another way to do things, and it was radioactive dating. And they've got several versions of that. They've got carbon-14 dating. There's other ones. See, I looked them up a while ago. Carbon-14 dating, potassium-argon dating, uranium-lead dating, all of these luminescent and radioactive dating methods. But the problem with all of them is they based the age that they were assigning to these radioactive half-lives, if you will. That's the scientific term for them.
Yeah, the carbon has a half-life. I can't remember exactly how many years it takes for it to deplete so much. Feel free to look this up for yourself. But I know what you're talking about. They basically, if you add up all the half-lives of the carbon by what they are going off of with carbon dating, it doesn't even add up to the millions and billions of years that they claim it, how old the Earth is.
Well, and here's the thing. Even they will tell you now that carbon-14 dating is only good to about 50 to 70,000 years old, is what they say. Now, they come up with that idea based on carbon-14 dating of fossils in soil layers that they were already dating at that age. So they made assumptions based on where they're finding these soils at. And instead of taking these theories and taking these theories that they're doing and trying to find evidence that proves or disproves and going with where the evidence is pointing, they're taking this stuff they're finding and they're twisting it to fit what they want.
Yeah, which is ascientific.
Yeah, it is 100%. I mean, they don't even follow what they preached for so long, the scientific method. Yeah, I think we talked about that last time too, where you're talking about all these things. And
didn't you say that they've nixed the scientific method from modern day curriculum?
Pretty much. We still teach it in our textbooks and in our curriculum and stuff, but it's not on these big issues like this. It's on little things, like trying to find out how a population of ants is going to grow, or just little experiments. You don't do it on a large scale. They're saying it doesn't apply. One thing that they have a problem with, the scientific community, is they have a problem with creationism because they say that it doesn't present any falsifiable facts. Like, you can't test the hypothesis and falsify it. And that doesn't make any sense to me, because to me, if something's true, it's true.
Yeah.
You can't falsifiably test gravity. It's there. Like, it's not going to go away. And maybe that's a simple way of thinking, but it to me it works. But that's what they were constantly doing. Now, if you're saying,
and really and truly, I think that's the whole shtick of these naturalists, is they try to make it so complicated that nobody wants to really peel away the layers of what they're saying to get at the base of what they're saying, which is total nonsense most of the time.
Yeah, yeah, and what's that razor's edge thing? I forget what the term is. There's a term for it where you have two sides of an argument, and the one that is usually the simpler or the most likely is usually the true one.
Right.
Like, you have two sides of that. It's just like if something happens and somebody comes to you and says, well, hey, so-and-so this is what they did.
You learned this in a philosophy class, didn't you?
I think I might have.
Yeah, it's philosophical.
Yeah, but the point is like, you can try and disprove that person isn't what they say they were, or what that person said they were. But if the evidence continually points to it, and that's the simplest explanation, that's probably what it is.
Yeah. I mean,
that's just how it is. Don't.
And it's crazy that you have to explain things in an elementary way like that, and just to kind of let people see what you're trying to say to them. But I think that's a result of, like I was saying, everything trying to be muddied up and overcomplicated just so it supports a certain side of a theory.
Yeah.
And that's all evolution is a theory. They call it evolution theory, not evolution fact.
Yeah, and they treat it like it's a fact. Yes. And that's a problem to me.
Me too.
I have no problem if you have this theory and you want to investigate things to see if it's true. But when you start believing it like it's fact and you can't prove it, that's when you have an issue.
Absolutely. It is, just like I said earlier, ascientific.
I mean, if we were to use that theory in the court of law, you'd
be toast.
Yeah, we're back in the Middle Ages now, where people are you got to prove
that you're not a witch.
Yeah, and that's a problem, because you can't prove something like that. I mean, come on. So, I mean, that's an issue. And, you look at all of this during this time, this Enlightenment period, the early to mid 19th century, 1800s, and you have all these people who are coming around and they're saying, well, we don't like this and we don't like that. And then you have, Darwin in the 1800s wrote his theory of evolution. I think it was called Evolution of a Species or something. I can't remember exactly the title of it. I've read stuff about it and the writing of it 100 times.
Sure.
But
then if you go a step further past the philosophical points of the proof of the Bible, or evidence, I should say, of the Bible, and get into the more physical realm of things. One thing that supports a worldwide flood is all around the world, including on top of Mount Everest, you can find fossilized clams that are in the closed position.
Yeah.
Now, when clams die, naturally they open up.
Right.
That's why you find mussel shells and things like this in nearly every lake you go to.
Right.
You find one half of it normally. But for a clam to die in the closed position, it's because it had to have been buried in layers of sediment from a flood. That is the only explanation that it would kill a clam in the closed position, and it'd stay in the closed position.
And not only that, but we live in Oklahoma and southeast Oklahoma, and there's an area not very far from us that has fossilized crustaceans.
Yeah. So right there on my place, nearly all of our property has limestone on it, and every single one of them is just chock full. It's all fossils. Is what limestone is.
Yeah.
It's a crap ton of fossils stuck in sediment.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's sea creatures. And like I said, we live in southeast Oklahoma.
Yeah, you find ammonites and all kinds of stuff.
And that's something else we talk about, from time to time. They say trilobites. Trilobites are the great key fossil, But I have a problem with that.
We find those in Oklahoma too.
Yeah. My problem was saying that trilobites are this great fossil to these index fossils, if you will.
Right.
That's the actual term. To date a layer of soil. Here's my problem. You look at the fossil of a trilobite. Look at what we call a roly-poly.
Pretty similar.
Pretty dang similar.
I mean, and on that same line of thought, the horseshoe crab.
Yeah, that was another one I was going to get to.
Yeah,
the horseshoe crab is almost identical
to the modern horseshoe crab.
Yeah, to a trilobite. So to say that that's the great index fossil when we still have creatures running around that are really similar.
Yeah. What's crazy too is we find all these ocean fossils in limestone here in southeast Oklahoma. And also, just right down the road, also in southeast Oklahoma, they found what's called an acrocanthosaurus, which is sort of a T-Rex sort of dinosaur. And one of the most complete fossil sets of an acrocanthosaurus that's ever been found was found right here.
Yep.
So tell me exactly how you would get a whole bunch of deep sea ocean fossils mixed in with land dinosaurs.
Yeah. Yeah, I believe they have that one in the museum.
They do, if you want to check it out.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, we went and looked at it a couple of times, but I mean, the whole system there. You look at everything that they're talking about; it's flawed. I mean, like I said, we talked about trilobites and how that evidence is there. Now we have these land dinosaurs that are being found in the same area, which I realize, their throwback to that is, well, it's going to be in a different layer. It's going to be in a different portion of the soil, and okay.
And a lot of times they find these fossils and they go through multiple layers of strata.
Yeah, to get to them.
And if each one of these layers of strata took millions of years to form, are you telling me that one of these ocean creatures, died head first, sticking out of the sand on the bottom of the ocean floor, and stayed in that exact same position for millions of years for this next few layers of strata to form? It
couldn't have happened.
Yeah, it's impossible.
It couldn't have happened.
And another thing too is fossilized trees that they find. Also, they find them upright, going through different layers of strata,
traversing the different layers of strata.
And I know that a tree didn't just die right there and stand up for millions of years.
So here's some other stuff here. So there was this guy named Leonard Woolley in 1920. So he did some excavation around the ancient city or civilization of Ur, which is in Mesopotamia, ancient Mesopotamia, and he found a clay layer about 3 meters thick, so about 3 yards thick for those of you that are live in America.
Yeah, we use freedom fractions.
Yeah, freedom fractions around here. We'll measure stuff in horse links instead of using the metric system around here. But so he found a 3 meter thick, just for the sake of the research there, layer of clay. And it was dating in the range, based on what he's finding in there, of 2900 BC. And in that layer, there were human artifacts. Now, what a lot of geologists have and archaeologists both have found is that that same clay layer is over most of the Earth at the same point.
Now, how in the world would you have that without a worldwide flood?
It kind of has to.
Yeah.
And what's amazing is you find all of this stuff below that layer that it doesn't. It's sparse and it's kind of ordered, and then you get above that layer, and now you have tons of fossils, and everything is in disorder.
Right.
It's all over the place.
And these so-called index fossils that are shown to be supposed to be 65 million years ago, how are there human remains and artifacts under those supposed 65 million year old
right
index fossils?
Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense. So
it doesn't.
That goes to the flood. Now,
I got a couple more things on the flood before you move on.
Well, that's what I'm still on the flood. I'm hung up on the flood. So
me too. Go ahead.
So one thing, and I talk with this about with a lot of my middle school kids, because the way I teach, I don't teach them that any of this stuff is necessarily wrong, but I give them pushback on just blindly believing. I want them to think about it. That's my thought. It's like
trying to teach them critical thinking.
Yeah, hold on. Think about this for yourself. Follow the logic through. Does this really make sense? What do you think about this? One thing we talk about is ice and liquid water. So one thing that, global warming experts say is that the sea levels are rising because the polar ice caps are melting. The issue with that is if you have a glass of water and you have ice in it, what happens when all the ice melts to the water level?
The water level is the exact same.
It doesn't go anywhere. And the reason why is because ice...
I know my water's overflowing because the ice is melting.
Yeah, ice takes up more volume. It's less dense than liquid water.
He's talking about frozen water, not the government agency.
Yeah, no, not immigration. But you look at all that and you see that that line of thought doesn't make sense. Oh, global warming because the sea levels are rising and the polar ice caps are melting. If the polar ice caps were melting, the sea level wouldn't change.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense because ice takes up more space than water does. So if the polar ice caps are melting, there should be the same amount of water or less water in the oceans. But if your sea levels are rising, my observed thought of this process with water freezing and how it expands, there would be more ice.
Yeah, I know. It's hard to make sense of what they're trying to say there.
So it doesn't make a lot of sense. But also you look at that and you see how that ice versus liquid water applies there. Now you're starting to say, look at the ice age. Look at how far that come down. There was a narrow band around the equator, about 30 degrees to about 30 degrees, that was livable space.
Right.
So about 30 degrees north and about 30 degrees south, when you're talking about your longitude and latitude lines around the equator.
And something that kind of supports that is exactly how long have we had just extremely accurate weather records? People recording the weather every day, what the temperature is, the humidity, all that stuff.
Probably 400 to 500 years.
400 to 500 years. So let's put ourselves in our neighbor's shoes here, and let's say we think that the Earth is billions of years old, and we've only had recorded weather for the last 500 years. I really think that's give them a little bit extra.
Yeah.
You can't tell me that 500 years of data can tell you exactly what's been going on for billions of years.
I would even give them more than that. I mean, let's say it goes back to
1200. Yeah.
AD. It's still. I mean, you're barely pushing 1,000 years there. It's still not enough.
It's not enough evidence to be able to project that model.
And I would honestly say that's probably my biggest problem with it is most of these evolutionist proponents, these naturalists, if you will, they live on this assumption that everything has happened at the same rate that it is happening now. And just most of the ones that are naturalists are also ones that are proponents of global warming. That's one reason why I brought that up. But just the very fact that they're saying that there's global warming and the climate's changing, it very much lends to things have not always happened at the same rate that they are happening now.
Yeah, that's right.
So things have changed. Things have progressed differently. There have been these massive global events or these changes in flora and fauna that live on this earth that has changed how things are on the earth. So things, you can't just take one timeline and say, we have always progressed at this rate.
There's no way to tell.
There's no way to tell. So you're making an assumption based on that. So to me, all of this stuff, does a lot of what I've brought up here, does it prove the existence of the Bible? I would honestly say no, it probably doesn't.
I don't think you can prove it either way. You can provide evidence.
I would honestly say a lot of what I've talked about here today is it more makes you have to sit for a second and at least question the validity of the opposing side's argument.
Yeah, absolutely. Because that's what everybody's taught when they're young with the core curriculum and everything, which is a whole nother can of worms. But so expanding a little more on the flood there, located in the mountains of Ararat in eastern Turkey, there is a large formation there that is believed to be Noah's Ark.
Yeah.
Now, initially, it was thought to be a mud flow. Okay. So mud flow down the side of a mountain, and certain pieces of this mud stacked up together and fossilized over time to give us this shape. Well, for it to be a mud flow, the shape of it is incorrect. So for a mud flow, it's pointed on the top of this formation. So on the high side, it'll be pointed and lobed at the bottom.
Yep.
Well, this particular formation in the mountains of Ararat in eastern Turkey is the opposite of that. The lobed portion of it is at the top, and the pointed end of it is at the bottom. So it can't be a mud flow. And there's a couple other things that really points to this being Noah's Ark. It's the correct length as far as the cubits and everything described in the Bible.
Yep.
Also, they've done core samples of these kind of standing strange rock formations, and they have found evidence that it is fossilized wood.
Yeah.
And then around this ark formation, they found what you call drogue stones.
Yeah.
So a drogue stone is an enormous stone, like the size of this table. It's huge, and it's got a hole drilled in the top of it. And they would tie rope into the top of that big hole in that rock and tie it to the sides of vessels back in the day, particularly barges and things of that nature, to kind of keep them upright in stormy weather.
Stuff that would catch a lot of your inclement weather, your big waves and things like that. You need something to keep it weighted down within the water to keep it from tipping over and capsizing.
And people refute that all the time and say, well, you couldn't go anywhere. Well, the point of the ark wasn't to go anywhere.
No,
it was to stay on top of the water.
And see, I almost debate that as well, because I've done some boating and things like that, especially in flat bottoms, which would be pretty similar to what we would think the ark would be like. It wasn't necessarily a V bottom. It probably more was a semi-V from what we think and can gather. But it definitely had a wide bottom on it. So I do a lot of boating around in upper creek channels and things like that in my duck hunting boat. And I can tell you, if I have something hanging over the side in the water, creating drag, for one, my motor isn't going to want to push because there's resistance. But two, the current is going to grab and push me more because of that. So now we're talking about ocean currents,
right,
and things like that are going to have a big effect on this. And if you study geography at all and you study ocean currents, you know that the thing that causes these surface ocean currents to break is land masses.
Right.
And if we're talking about a global flood, there is no land mass to break that surface ocean current.
That's right.
So it's just going to push.
Yeah.
And I think those droge stones apply in that.
Yeah, it keeps them from capsizing and everything else. Another thing that's pretty interesting, if you look at other barges and things that are of what they call prehistory,
Mm-hmm.
you know, a lot of your ancient stuff, Bronze Age type stuff. One of the things that they use for barges, they called it a moon pool.
Yeah.
So basically, it's a hole in the bottom of the boat, and it has a wall built up on the inside. And basically, what that does, it also relieves pressure for going over waves and stuff like that. Yeah. And the design of this is really ingenious because what it does with that water level going up and down inside this moon pool, inside this boat, it's actually acting like a piston and pumping fresh air up into this boat the entire time.
Yeah, and it's almost like a baffle inside a tank, like we've got at the fire department. You know, that would cause that water flowing inside that moon pool like that. It would slow things down, keep things from shaking around so much because that water is going to push against the sides. It's like you said, it's going to pump fresh air. Which, if you think about it, you've got this enclosed structure with all these animals. You're definitely going to want some fresh air.
You bet.
You know, growing up on the farm and the ranches and stuff like we have, and dealing with livestock. You go to a county show barn, it stinks in there.
It's smelly.
So, but you know that baffle in there too is going to cause that water not only the craft that the moon pool's built in, but it's going to cause that water to slow down on the craft as well, so it's not taking the abuse.
Yeah, absolutely. And on top of that, there's people always say, "Well, how did he fit all those animals on the boat?" So if this idea was given to Noah by an all-knowing, omnipotent, sovereign God of the universe.
Yeah.
He knows what he's talking about.
Yeah.
So, you know, would we put it past the good Lord to tell him to, you know, bring the baby animals? You sure fit a lot more babies on there.
Well, and not only that, but
you know, you got to make sure you get a pink one and a blue one.
It doesn't say.
That comes in handy later.
Yeah, but another thing is it doesn't really say bring two of each type. It says two each kind.
Yeah.
And you know, it's like you cannot argue that if you looked at a wolf, a German Shepherd, a Golden Retriever, God forbid a Yorkie, or a Chihuahua or something like that.
But they're all from the same animal.
They're all dogs.
Yeah, and that's where. So they call that microevolution.
Right.
I like to call it adaptation because it's a little disingenuous to call it microevolution.
Yeah.
And they think that is evidence for macroevolution, which is not the case at all.
Again, that goes back to them thinking that everything has happened at the same rate that it is happening now.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's not the case. And I do not debate that we adapt over time. I have this conversation with my middle schoolers all the time. They want to talk about, well, a lot of them they're Christian and they're like, well, no, I don't believe evolution. I'm like, okay, well, hold on a minute. Let's push back on this too. You know, what about why is this one talking about one of my students? Why is his skin color black? Why is yours white? Why is yours brown? Why is his hair curly and yours is long and straight? Why are your eyes blue and their eyes brown? You know, and I point out all these little differences between them.
Adaptation.
And that's what I'm saying. I said, okay, now go follow their ancestry back and look at where their people come from. And now you start looking at the environment that those people lived in.
Yeah. And
you don't think that blue eyes, which adapt quicker to light changes, that wouldn't be an asset in Arctic environments where you have short daylight periods? Absolutely it would. Are you going to need darker skin in those environments? No, because you're going to be wearing clothes.
And you're going to need lighter skin to be able to suck in some more of that vitamin D from the sun.
When you don't have as much sunlight.
Absolutely.
Now, you get around the equator, obviously the skin's going to darken up and hair's going to change and body types are going to change.
It's got to protect you from some of the certain things from the sun.
You got to deal with more heat and things like that. It's brighter sunlight, like you said. That's why their eye colors are darker normally. It's why their skin color's darker. It's why their hair is most of the time shorter like that, because they don't need all that insulation.
Right.
And it's just all those things are just adaptations. And I'm kind of the same way. I don't like calling it microevolution because that just plays right into their secular way of thinking. And so I definitely like the adaptation more. But that's what I try to get my students to think. It's like, it's not that I'm not saying that they don't have some truth to things adapting over time and changing. It's this whole thing of we all come from a single cell organism. We talked about that last time, about the odds of that happening. It's astronomically impossible. And that's another thing, going back to Charles Darwin and them, they didn't understand when they were talking about evolution, they didn't understand the complexity of the genome either in any animal, much less the human genome. The more we look at it, the more we look at how it functions, we can't deny that there had to be some kind of intelligent designer. Like I don't even know how it would be possible. It's so complex. Those numbers we come up with just like we talked about last time, with the odds of one cell forming.
Right.
That doesn't even play into the entire genetic alphabet that would have to occur.
Sure. Yeah. And what's crazy to me is a lot of people who believe in evolution, they don't even have a clear picture of what they're believing.
Right.
So for evolution to happen, you've got to have a few things. So start with what they call it the Big Bang, which is just really crazy to believe in. Anyway, I would dare say it's crazier to believe in that than it is to believe in a all-knowing creator.
Yeah.
But so with the Big Bang, it states that there in the beginning there was nothing, and all of this nothing concentrated
and then exploded
down to the size of, it just infinitesimal. The point of a pin is what a lot of people say. And then this nothing ball of compressed nothing exploded. And, and then, from these little bits of explosion, that's where you get all of your basic elements. And what's crazy is you have to have a few things for it to even get to the point to where there's biological life.
Yeah.
You've got to have the evolution of stars, which has never, ever been recorded or witnessed. Then you have to have chemical evolution. So you have to have chemicals that are evolving, not even biological life forms, which has never been recorded. And then you also have to have elemental evolution. So like things like lead evolving into argon and things like that. And that's never been recorded. So it's crazy to start with.
The closest you get to that goes back to that carbon-14 dating, that radioactive decay. That's the closest you get it. But then you're not forming these things from nothing. These things are decayed into something that already existed.
Yeah.
So it's not, you're still not
it's crazy.
Having elemental evolution. It just doesn't work like that.
Right. And then to push that a little further, when it comes to the Earth. So at first, supposedly, it was just this big, hot ball of rock.
Yeah.
And then somehow, this weird ball of rock formed an atmosphere from the gases coming out of it. And then it rained on this rock and created what they call a primordial soup.
Where did those gases come from?
Well, of course, they evolved, of course. And, so it gets crazier. So once this elemental primordial soup has formed of water on top of this weird hot ball of rock, then inside, you've got lightning strikes and things like happening in this atmosphere that formed out of nothing. And this is what causes biological life to take form, is from these lightning strikes and things and this water heating up, that it's creating these little tiny microbes that start breeding and interbreeding, and then, eventually they're fish, and then the fish crawl out of the water onto the land. It's crazy.
Hold on, I'm going to consult my good friend, Sir Isaac Newton. Yeah, he says matter and energy can be created.
That is the law of thermodynamics.
So, law of conservation of matter and law of conservation of energy, which is the law of thermodynamics.
Yeah, and it's been argued before that the theory of evolution and things of that nature really is somewhat satanic. And let me explain to you where that train of thought comes from. So, if you believe in an omnipotent, all-knowing creator, God, then he created things and breathed life into it, right?
Yeah.
So it starts with creating life.
Yeah.
If you believe in the theory of evolution, you believe that life came from death.
Mm-hmm.
The survival of the fittest, the stronger survive.
Yep.
So all these other things have to die for this thing to move forward. And what does the devil do? He takes God's creation.
Kills, steals, and destroys.
That's right. And he can't create anything. He has to make a perverse version of it.
Yep.
So being born out of death is the theory of evolution. Being born out of life is the theory of creation.
Yeah. Okay. So do you got anything more? We're 45 minutes, 46 minutes now. So we're actually overtime in this episode. Do you have anything else on this flood before we wrap up? I think we probably will take this into another episode here on just evidence, and we may not have. I mean, I bet you we can talk enough. We can come up with stuff for a whole nother episode.
I've got a few more things that I want to touch on, and either we can keep going on it and then make this a 2-part episode, or we can end it right here. What do you think, Jesse?
Yeah, I think we go ahead and we end this episode, and then we see where the next one takes us.
Sounds good.
All right. So we will we'll talk to y'all next time. You know, if y'all obviously if you enjoy this, as always, make sure you like, comment, follow, share, tell people about us. Any of those interactions sure do help us. Apple Podcasts, give us a 5-star review if you like it. YouTube, click the little blue bell and subscribe to us.
Yeah.
And let us know what's going on. So we thank y'all, and we will see y'all next time.
We'll see y'all later.